election. So why didn't he do something about Russian meddling?
When Russians were involved and the Obama administration knew about it, he said this.
I'd advise Mr. Trump to stop whining and go try to make his case to get votes.
Justice isn't blind anymore. Justice will be dead if something doesn't happen here.
The new poll shows support for President Trump's tax cut increasing by 14%.
35% are favorable of the government's policies. Right. That's the highest level in over half a century.
Senate hopeful Mitt Romney getting a huge endorsement from Washington.
You can take the Romney suburban wing of the party and connect it to the Trump blue-collar wing of the party. You then have, I think, an absolute governing majority.
So Jennifer Lawrence has revealed that she is actually going to be taking a break from the spotlight.
Trying to get, young people engaged politically, fix our democracy.
Fergie music along with the rest of the Black Eyed Peas to start this hour. Fox and Friends.
That's right. Hard to believe it's February 20th. I'm thinking, have you gotten your taxes done? Taxes are due right around the corner.
In 2 months.
But if you wait,
it's 2 months.
If you wait until March, my tax guy always says, are you going to get money back in a few months? Because you've waited so long.
Right.
So I like to get it done soon, and I haven't even started.
Plus, you want to get to your accountant, because I can't. Do you do your own taxes?
No, I get someone to do it.
You do?
You do your own?
I do the kids' taxes.
Wow.
Do you really?
Wow.
You
Okay.
I help them all.
But,
why not?
But for those
simple.
people who use professionals, if you get it to them at the end of the cycle, they're exhausted. So a lot of times they'll make up numbers, and they'll come up with income that didn't happen.
Who are you using? Because that's called illegal.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just turn myself into the end of the show.
Oopsie-daisy. Anyway, thank you very much. You have 2 months before the taxes are due, but right now we're going to tell you the news of the day, and here's the news of the day. How many times have we heard that Russia colluded with the Trump campaign to throw the election in his favor? Well, we've heard it a million times. However, President Trump himself has been tweeting out, hey, you know what? President Obama knew this was going on. He was president. Why didn't he stop anything last time we had an election? And that could have just put the kibosh on everything.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is exactly what the president tweeted. He said Obama was president up to and beyond the 2016 election. So why didn't he do something about Russian meddling? And I am reading that. I did not memorize it.
Right, that's true. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's a key. If you look at the last 8 years prior to the President Trump's win, which not many people are expecting, especially people in the Obama White House, it was a period of appeasement for Russia and America. We know President Bush at first said, I looked into President Putin's soul. He seems like a good guy. Turns out he's evil. Then the President Obama starts. He says, I know one thing for sure. We're going to have better relations with Russia. And I'm going to show a show of solidarity. I'm going to pull our defensive missiles out of Eastern Europe. Really? You're going to do that ahead of time? They looked at that as weakness. Next thing you know, they're in the Middle East. Next thing you know, they're back from Georgia to the Ukraine. And next thing you know, the President of the United States has to try to reset that relationship, and it doesn't work. And in 2014, they start infiltrating into our election process.
And the next thing you know, President Obama said this on October 18th, right before the election. Listen.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections. There's no evidence that that has happened in the past, or that there are instances in which that will happen this time. And so I'd advise Mr. Trump to stop whining and go try to make his case to get votes.
He did, and he won.
Here's the thing. There's so many Democrats now whining about Russia collusion, although we saw from the Mueller indictments on Friday, there was no collusion that they can prove at this point. But when Barack Obama said those things about how there is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow you could rig the elections because things were so dispersed, President Obama at that time, when he said that, he was hearing from the intel community, you know, the Russians are trying to rig the election. And in fact, a month before he said that, he was sitting down with Vladimir Putin, and he said, I know what you're doing, knock it off. He later told reporters, we believe that Putin knocked it off. He did not knock it off.
And by the
We now
way,
know that
not
for
only
sure.
did they knock it off then, they're not knocking it off now. Within hours of the shooting on Wednesday, they have bots, could be traced back to Russia, working both sides of the gun issue within social media, furthering to divide our country and set up perhaps organizations, riots, and demonstrations around both issues that aren't even set up by Americans.
Yeah. So we asked Speaker of the House, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, about the Obama administration, and did they do enough? Listen to his response.
If this particular project was as big as the news media claims it was, then why didn't the National Security Agency, or why didn't the FBI, why didn't the Central Intelligence Agency? I mean, somebody's supposed to pick it up. There's a long stretch in there where either the system broke down or we have a much deeper need to rebuild our security system. And this is not about Obama personally, but that whole structure, you have to say to yourself, if it was as big as Mueller seems to think it was, somebody should have noticed.
And they did, but why didn't they say anything? Among the people that didn't notice is Michael Moore. He participated in an anti-Trump rally right outside Trump Tower days after the election, calling on Donald Trump to come down. The people that organized that rally were Russians.
Sure, and I was watching on Special Report last night. They're so worried about some sort of influence or the hacking of our next election. What some states are talking about is forget about the machines that are hooked up to Wi-Fi, because you can hack into that. Maybe we should go back to paper ballots. But that's scary, because remember Florida back in the day. Exactly.
Right, we don't know how to punch them out. You can't use Chads. We just put out...
You make Chads.
You could just give people a blank piece of paper. And if they can't spell, they can't vote. And just write the person that you want to see president.
But nonetheless...
That wouldn't be politically correct, Ryan.
It brings us back to the original point, was that President Obama, in his last year, knew it was happening and could not or did not do anything to stop it.
But was the ground laid in the interim to destroy the president's first year and mired in controversy about the Russians' imprint on the election, because it's certainly been, at the very least, a distraction for the last 13 months.
Well, a lot of you guys have been writing us about a different topic, too, about Joy Behar making that comment, the vice president. Omarosa said on live TV, or said not live TV, on that reality show that she's a part of, said that when she worked at the White House, that the one you really have to worry about is the vice president, because he speaks to God. He hears from God. Well, then Joy Behar said this about it.
It's one thing to talk to Jesus. It's another thing when Jesus talks to you. That's different. That's called mental illness, if I'm not correct. I'm hearing voices.
Well, the problem is when you say that people who talk to God are mentally ill, there are a lot of Americans who feel exactly that way, that they do have a conversation with the Almighty. Ainsley was down at the border with the Vice President of the United States a couple of days ago and asked him about that exchange, and here is Mike Pence's response.
When I heard that ABC had a program that likened my Christianity to mental illness, I just couldn't be silent. My Christian faith is probably the most important thing in my life. I do try and start every day reading the Bible. My wife and I try and have a prayer together before I leave the house every morning. But I do think I'm a very typical American. I think people of all different faith traditions cherish their faith in God, and to have ABC have a forum that spoke in such meaning terms, I think it's evidence of how out of touch some in the mainstream media are with the faith and values of the American people.
Well, Joy Behar has since said, because ABC took 25,000 calls, furious for people that she would do that she was simply kidding. She was making a joke.
But she does say she gives money to the Catholic Church, so there.
She said she has a lot of family and friends that are Christians.
All right, we asked you what you thought. Bill emailed us. Everyone is missing the saddest part of her statement, the reaction from the audience. They applauded her, talking about the studio audience.
Everyone laughed.
What does that speak to? I wish we would have heard boos from them, not cheers.
Well, because the people who are in the audience support what those ladies say. And also, don't they hold up the cards that say clap? And the audience just does it?
We do too, but we don't get any applause.
All right, Brian.
Thank you, Jillian.
Email from Cindy.
Right. I'll do my best Cindy voice. If she does apologize, I will not accept Behar's apology. It is not sincere. She was not joking and would only be to save her job. We know her true colors, and I can't believe that any Christian would watch the program.
Neil sends this email to us. He says, a message to Joy Behar. God is speaking to you. You're just not listening.
Right.
Oh, boy.
That's good.
But listen, we're talking about The View again for the first time in 5 years, so they got to feel good about it. They should send a thank you note to President Trump every day, because by them teeing off on Trump on a regular basis, they're making themselves relevant.
I don't think this is good for The View, ultimately, because we're a majority Christian nation, and what was said, not good for business.
Right. I actually think that they have a different point of view on that. But I'll tell you one thing that's good for us when Jillian's here.
Hi. Good morning, guys.
Hello.
How are you? How's it going?
Good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks
All right,
for asking.
good. Yeah, excellent. Let's get you caught up on some of your headlines this morning. Starting with this, today, busloads of grieving students from Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School will march on Florida's Capitol, demanding changes to gun safety laws. Their demonstration coming hours after a judge ruled the Florida shooting suspect's childhood records can go public. The documents revealing allegations that Nicholas Cruz lived in a home filled with abuse and neglect. Meantime, Stoneman Douglas High will reopen in phases starting Friday. Classes will likely resume next week. The building where the killings took place will be demolished. The FBI now joining the desperate search for a missing 5-year-old boy in Kansas. According to his stepmother, Lucas Hernandez was last seen inside his home on Saturday afternoon. When she woke up from a nap, she says he was gone and the back door was open. Police do not suspect Lucas was kidnapped. According to local reports, a relative called Child Protective Services last year, concerned about the child's well-being. Now to extreme weather as the Northeast heats up. Parts of the western U.S. buried in up to a foot of snow. Drivers left dealing with the mess from Denver to Salt Lake City. Even California and Oregon getting hit hard. The system now pushing into the Midwest, bringing snow, ice, and rain. But it's going to be 60s in New York today and close to 70.
Yeah.
Not 70 here tomorrow. It's
I know,
crazy.
it'd be nice.
I know.
We'll take it.
Yes,
and
we
that
will.
means we go right into spring. It's going to be impossible for it to snow again in February, and nothing's going to happen in March.
It's going to get cold on Thursday.
Says
Really?
meteorologist Brian Kilmeade.
Right. I have a hunch.
It also means you're not going to be able to swing in Central Park. All the swings are taken by the kids.
That's true.
Sorry, Brian.
That's why there should not be children allowed in the city. I've always said that.
Good.
I've said that. All right, 12 minutes after the top of the hour. One sheriff is making sure teachers are prepared after last week's school shooting by giving them free concealed carry lessons. What do you think about that? He's going to join us live next.
And you can't make this up. Senator Kamala Harris is sad. Why is she sad? Because fewer illegals are applying for financial aid. Exactly. Ben Shapiro might want to see if he could make her happy.
It's coming to an end. Oh well, I guess we're gonna pretend. Let's see how far we've come. Let's see how far we've come. We can turn the clock, but I don't really know. And I can't remember caring for an hour.
An Ohio sheriff is trying to make sure teachers are better prepared after last week's deadly school shooting by educating them about guns.
Sheriff Richard Jones tweeting on Sunday, he said, quote, I'm going to offer free concealed and carry class to teachers in Butler County. Limited number, details coming soon online, also training on school shootings.
Since then, the sheriff has received hundreds of requests for the class, and he joins us right now from Cincinnati. Sheriff, good morning to you.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
We're doing okay. We're talking about your offer, though. Why do you want teachers to carry guns in schools?
We had a school shooting here, and my daughter came to my house one morning at the day after the shooting. She was in tears, just like a lot of mothers in our country. She was taking her kids to school the next day, and every time there's a school shooting, she fears for her kids' safety. Being a grandpa, I determined that I'm going to do something. I'm not going to be like the other leaders in our country fighting over weapons and what's legal, what's not. We're going to actually do something. It's a community involvement. We're the 8th largest county in Ohio. We thought we'd offer 50 slots, and within 20 minutes we had 100. Within an hour we had 150. We'll probably be over 500. Wow. These are teachers, and when people say teachers don't want to be armed in school, that's not true. This is a community in Ohio. We're between Cincinnati and Dayton, and it's overwhelming with the numbers. We're going to do it for free. We're going to teach the teachers. We're going to give them a concealed carry permit when they're done. In Ohio, you can carry a concealed carry in the schools if the school board allows you to do that. We're going to do the training. We're starting the training next week. We're going to have 50 to a class, and we're leading by example. and we're getting calls from all over the country. How are we doing it? We've got vendors that are wanting to feed the people, free meals at lunchtime, the caterers. We've got people wanting to pay for their permits. People come forward. We've got to do something. There will be, 2 weeks ago, the number was 15. Now the number is 17. And believe me, there's somebody out there now, as we're watching and talking, that want to beat that number. We've got to do something, and we got to do it now. The copycats are coming. We cannot depend on our Congress and our Senate to do anything to fix this issue. All they're going to do is fight and argue.
Sheriff, at the school shooting down in Florida, there was a police officer that did have a gun, but obviously, you know, it didn't help in this case. What is your plan? Do you want every teacher in the schools in your county to have guns, or do you want 10 or 12 in each school? What's the plan?
We had an officer in our school also armed, but when he left the cafeteria, the student got up and started shooting that gun and shooting people in the school. One is not enough. It needs to be teachers, and the kids don't need to know who has the weapon. It doesn't need to be all the teachers. We need to do something. We can't be like ostriches and have our heads in the sand. We've got to protect the kids, period.
All right, Sheriff Richard Jones joining us from Butler County, Ohio, where he's the sheriff there. Sir, thank you very much for joining us live. Good luck.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thanks for what you're doing. Still ahead, remember this teacher's anti-military rant?
They're not like high-level thinkers. They're not academic people. They're not intellectual people. They're the freaking lowest of our low.
Calls are still growing, and they're growing louder for him to step down from his city council seat. The council's only veteran among them is here live. That's next.
And the catch of the day is trout. The moment of fish makes a desperate bid for freedom, all caught on camera. Get me out of here.
I'm stronger than I've been before. This is the part when I break free. 'Cause I can't resist it no more.
All right, 23 minutes after the hour, some quick headlines. Here's what's happening right now. The Supreme Court coming back from its winter break as the deadline looms for a deal on DACA. Justices may step in as soon as today and decide on the appeal of President Trump's executive order. Under the current plan, DACA would expire on March 5th. And today, President Trump will honor 12 of America's finest with the Public Safety Medal of Valor. Among the recipients, first responders to the San Bernardino terror attack. Remember them? This year's honorees was scheduled to receive the awards last year, but instead they went to officers who responded to the congressional baseball shooting, and we can understand that.
Meanwhile, remember the California school teacher who said this about the military. Listen carefully.
Got a bunch of dumb over there. Think about the people who you know are over there. Your freaking stupid Uncle Louie or whatever. They're dumb. They're not like high-level thinkers. They're not academic people. They're not intellectual people. They're the freaking lowest of our low.
Now the residents of Pico Rivera, California, are calling on that teacher, Gregory Salcido, to step down from his city council seat, including the council's only veteran.
All right, joining us right now is that councilman himself, former combat veteran, Army paratrooper, Bob Archuleta. Bob, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Hey, Bob, we saw a little of the meeting a week ago, and it was fiery, but he's not budging. What's your message to this teacher who's a councilman?
Listen to the community, listen to the nation. This country is coming together for one reason, and that's to acknowledge the fact that our men and women who are in uniform and those who have served with honor and distinction should be recognized and honored every single day. And this man just doesn't get it. He's got to understand the city of Pico Rivera, along with the entire state of California. Everyone I know is saying, Greg Salcido, step down. You don't deserve to hold that position in the city council or in the teacher's classroom.
Bob, you are the only veteran that sits on the council with him. Your two sons serve in the military. He said you and your sons and everyone in the military are the lowest of the low. What do you think about him?
Wow, that's amazing. You tell that to the jet fighter who's flying. You tell that to the paratroopers that are serving right now, the Air Force, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard. Those are my sons who are West Point graduates. I don't think any West Point officer, anyone who's gone to the academy, is the lowest of the low. And right now, our men and women who are serving are the brightest we've ever had. I had the opportunity to visit our sailors aboard ship. I was the LA County Commissioner of Military and Veterans Affairs for about 20 years. I served under two presidents, both President George W. Bush and President Obama, representing our men and women in uniform. And so I've been there. I've been on the ships. I've been on submarines. I've been on the military bases. And in today's skills that are needed, these young men and women are the brightest we've ever seen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I understand that your town hall has received something like 100,000 calls and emails from people all over. There has been apparently a recall petition launched at the council meeting that you were at. There's one of the people who wanted him to quit. Here is the defense he launched at that meeting. Listen to this, Bob.
I don't think it's at all a revelation to anybody that those who aren't stellar students usually find the military a better option. That's as plain as that it's Tuesday night. But that's not a criticism of anybody. Anything I said had nothing to do with their moral character.
Okay, so he's still a teacher. He's on leave right now. He is still a councilman. But if he is recalled by the people of your town, he'll leave, right?
Well, he's already said he's not going to leave. He has been belligerent in some cases, I understand, but he refuses to step down. We've passed a resolution asking Greg Salcido to resign. We've asked him to do that. The communities come together. The school board had its meeting almost with 1,000 people there. We had a couple of hundred people in our chambers, and they said, resign, Salcido, resign. We had 200 people outside chanting, get him out of here. He doesn't represent us. He doesn't represent this community, and he sure doesn't represent anyone who's in education.
Bob,
We've
real
got
quickly,
the finest teachers out there.
Have you
Go ahead.
had words with him?
No, I have not, and I don't choose to, and I don't think any apology he can muster would ever have any sincerity in it. So no, I have no time for him at all.
No. And by the way,
too many great, honorable men and women out there.
And not only is not his opinion, the numbers don't add up. We already had the head of recruiting for the Army on here, and he went over everyone's average scores, their education. It's above the national average in almost every way. So it's not only bias, it's wrong. Bob, thanks for your service. Thanks for your family service. Yes. And thanks for speaking out this morning. We know in California, according to reports, it's earlier there. So we know you got up early for us.
Thank you so much, Bob.
I did. Well, listen, it's my pleasure, and God bless America, and thank you, our men and women in uniform, for serving this great country.
Here, here. Bob, thank you.
All right, there's hope in California. Meanwhile, the video is shocking. A teacher fired after body slamming a student.
Oh!
You won't believe how it started, though. You might change your opinion.
And you can't make this up. California Senator Kamala Harris is sad because fewer illegals are applying for college financial aid. Ben Shapiro lives in her state. Wait till you hear his reaction.
President's back, landed last night, back at work last night, and of course up already today. He's been tweeting a lot.
Was down in Mar-a-Lago for President's Day weekend.
That's right. Back to work today. Ben Shapiro is the editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire, syndicated columnist, and the host of the wildly successful Ben Shapiro Show. It's a podcast. Hey, Ben, let's start by talking a little bit about what happened down in Florida last week with Parkland, that high school there. This time, the debate seems different, and it seems like people in Washington on both sides of the aisle are trying to make sure that school violence, you know, they can do something about it. They haven't been able to get a handle on it so far. What's your suggestion?
I mean, I think the first thing that has to be done is obviously security at these schools needs to be radically escalated. When I was in high school, I went to a Jewish day school out in Los Angeles, and a mass shooter named Buford Fierro actually drove past our school and saw there was armed security outside. He wanted to target a Jewish center, and he proceeded to drive right past it. He saw that he didn't want to go where there was armed security. He went over to the JCC instead in the East Valley here and shot up the JCC. Armed security does make a difference, and having lots of security guards at these schools would be a welcome thing. I think students should have their IDs checked when they walk onto campus. We should be be guarding our children like we guard our banks. I mean, these are our most valuable asset, and the idea that anybody would oppose this on any ground seems to me unreasonable.
Right. I just worry about, you know, in situations when there's a budget and teachers got to buy their own supplies, then you got to go tell these people who are living off property taxes, go spend money for armed security. I wish there was a way to do that nationwide.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there should be talk about, you know, federal dollars going toward things like that, and I think that if there are states that are spending on various, you know, boondoggles around the country, it seems to me this should be priority number one. This one should be definitely near the top of the list. It should not be near the bottom.
Yeah, Ben, we interviewed a guy, Sheriff Richard Jones. He's the sheriff in Butler County, which is in Ohio. Pretty tough guy. We liked him. We all liked him. He put on Twitter, he wrote to the teachers in that area. He said, come, I'll teach you conceal and carry. I'll give you a conceal and carry license. I'll teach you, train you how to carry a gun so that you can take them inside your classrooms, and I'll do this for free. Hundreds of teachers have responded. Listen to this.
When people say teachers don't want to be armed in school, that's not true. This is a community in Ohio between Cincinnati and Dayton, and it's overwhelming with the numbers. We're going to do it for free. We're going to teach the teachers. We're going to give them a concealed carry permit when they're done. In Ohio, you can carry a concealed carry in the schools if the school board allows you to do that. We're going to do the training. We're starting the training next week. We're going to have 50 to a class, and we're leading by example.
I guess the idea is if a shooter were to walk into a classroom, you just don't know who in the school is carrying a gun.
Yeah, and I think that would be a great solution. I mean, you're trusting your safety to the teachers anyway every single day when you send your kids to school. And we're telling these teachers that it's better for them to jump in front of doors and block bullets with their body than to arm these same teachers so that they can actually defend the students. It makes zero sense. I mean, some of the heroes that we saw at Parkland, including the coach there who died in order to protect students, wouldn't have been better if that coach had been able to protect himself and protect the students with a gun on campus? Again, you're already trusting these teachers with the safety of the kids.
Ben, what's your take on the background checks that allow Nicholas Cruz to legally get a gun? Are you okay with that, knowing his years of mental illness that they've been dealing with in the school system?
No, obviously this is insanity. I mean, the fact that the background check system is not transparent, the fact that you'll have federal background checks that are not coordinated with local background checks, as we've seen in other mass shooting cases, the fact that the FBI was twice told about this guy and that twice they did nothing about it. One of the big problems with the push for gun legislation is that there actually has to be someone who enforces the legislation. There are tens of thousands of people across the country who are straw buyers, who are illegally purchasing guns to hand off to people who cannot legally purchase guns, and something like 44 of them were prosecuted in a several-year period. So if the government is going to be given additional power, they should at least be using the power they have right now to prevent people who are bad from getting guns.
Yeah, it's more dangerous to buy beer for kids than it is a gun for a kid right now.
Enforce the laws we have. All right, meanwhile, out in California, the state that you're sitting in, the senator there, Kamala Harris, has sent this out in a statement. She said, for the second year in a row, fewer undocumented youth applied for financial aid in California because they are distrustful of our government. This is a direct product of Trump's anti-immigrant agenda. No one in America should ever have to live in fear of our government. Okay, where would you like to start on that, Jem?
My state is so stupid. I'm sorry. I think I've lived here my entire life, but California is so dumb. And Kamala Harris's statement here that what California really needs is to shell out more dollars for financial aid for illegal immigrants. According to FAIR, which is an anti-illegal immigration group, their estimate is that California spends $23 billion per year on illegal immigration. That's twice as much as any other state in the union. Yet Governor Jerry Brown has said that all illegal immigrants are not only welcome in the state of California, but that we're going to subsidize them to be in the state of California. Again, if you are a legal resident of the United States, if you're here legally, then you should be upset with the idea of subsidizing people to come here illegally if you're interested at all in having a sovereign country that controls its borders. This is just, it's pure insanity, but it shows once again that for Democrats, there's an actual look to make illegal immigration more prominent. They want more illegal immigrants, not fewer illegal immigrants, which explains a lot of their behavior on immigration bills that have come up for consideration.
And if you walk through Los Angeles or San Francisco, you see all the homeless there, and you don't think to yourself, we need more people who are having trouble making ends meet.
Well, obviously, most of the homeless people in California are not illegal immigrants, but those people obviously could use resources that the state is not providing, and the state is not providing those because the state of California is bankrupt. I mean, according to estimates, we have over $1 trillion of outstanding debt. So the idea that we're going to be spending $23 billion a year on people who should not be in the country legally, and then we should be mourning the fact that we're not spending more. Again, we have citizens in this country where I'm not in favor of a lot of this government spending, but if you're going to have it, at least spend it on the people who are here legally.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Jennifer Lawrence, heck of an actress. She'll be doing this next year.
I'm going to take the next year off. I'm going to be working with this organization I'm a part of, Represent Us, trying to get, young people engaged politically, on a local level.
That's awesome.
It doesn't have anything to do with partisans. It's just anti-corruption stuff, trying to pass state-by-state laws that can help prevent corruption, fix our democracy.
Well, it sounds like she's taking a year off to do some activist stuff, but her agents apparently have confirmed to Entertainment Weekly that she will be returning to work when she's got a bunch of projects on the table ready to go. But nonetheless, she wants to get political.
Yeah, well, I mean, if the previews for Red Sparrow are any indicator, then the United States may be better off if she takes a year off from acting for a little while. But what's amazing to me is that the folks in Hollywood are so consumed with their own political agenda, they don't understand how off-putting they are politically. Hillary Clinton trotted out every single Democrat person who's a celebrity that she could find, and it alienated everyone in the middle of the country. Nobody in Ohio was voting for Hillary Clinton because she was trotting out Lena Dunham at the DNC. People in Hollywood don't understand. We're not all that interested. You can say what you want. You have a right to say whatever you want. It's America. But people in America are not all that interested in hearing the political perspectives of people who read other people's lines for a living. They may be more interested in your politics if they're embedded in a movie that's entertaining, but they're not interested in hearing what Jennifer Lawrence has to say about tax policy or corruption policy off the screen. It's just silly.
All right. They are having registering people to vote outside Black Panther, that runaway hit, one of the most successful movies ever. That probably is more effective.
All right, Ben Shapiro,
Yeah,
thank you so much. Sorry, go ahead.
Thanks. Oh, no, that's totally right.
Can you tell? This segment is unscripted. All right. Ben, thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks.
Janice, can you calm down, please?
You're right. You're always right, Brian.
He's just telling Brian what we all tell him all the time. You're right,
good.
Brian.
Thank
all right,
you.
Jillian has some headlines for us this morning.
Good morning to you guys. Following a number of stories, so let's get you caught up on some of your headlines, starting with this. A substitute teacher in North Carolina is fired after this video emerges showing him body slamming a middle school student. The student says it started after the teacher took away his Valentine's Day chocolates. The child's family says they'll take legal action. His shoulder and back badly bruised. The police say the video doesn't capture the entire incident, and they are currently investigating. Imagine a world without a presidency. Convicted secrets leaker and Senate hopeful Chelsea Manning slammed for that tweet dissing the Oval Office. Some people quick to point out she would still be in prison if we didn't have a president. As you recall, last year, President Obama commuted her 35-year prison sentence for leaking military documents. One person calling her a hypocrite, tweeting back, quote, imagine a world where someone running for Senate is criticizing basic structures of our government. Talk about a catch of the day. Just watch this. A fish takes a leap of faith at a Chinese grocery store, landing right into a customer's shopping cart. The fish trying to escape from being caught in a net when it goes flying out of its tank. Moments later, an employee returns the fish. Its ultimate fate, though, is still unknown. Oh, no. Those moves were pretty impressive by that fish, guys.
So funny.
I know.
Get out of there.
When you add something to your cart, you don't usually see it go into the cart like that.
It's true.
All right. Thank you. All right, straight ahead, sanctuary city policies are causing problems all around the country. One police union president testified before Congress saying not only do they make his communities less safe, they are fueling the drug epidemic, and he is going to join us coming up.
And Robert Mueller's indictments show no sign of Trump collusion. So what does that mean